Hi all, it's Kimoni here. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new, happy to have you here. Hope you enjoy the videos. Today I really wanted to discuss how to find your love for reading. How do you unearth this love, this passion for reading? Because I feel like as you grow older, you get more busy, you have other priorities, you go through education, you sort of start to lose that love, that sense of joy that you get from really sitting down and digging into a story, reading a book. And so I really wanted to discuss how we can refine that sort of love and passion for reading, for books, in whatever kind of books that you enjoy, because I do feel like reading can bring a lot of joy. It can be very fulfilling, to be absorbed in a story. And so today I really wanted to talk about how you can get yourself back into it, how you can find your hidden love for reading. So my first tip, which is probably the most obvious out of all the tips I'm going to give today, but is to read what you're interested in. Read in what you're passionate about. You don't have to pick up a non-fiction book off the shelf about history or something because you want to seem smart or anything like that. You can pick up a book about jokes. You can pick up a book about animals. You can pick up a joke about a prince and a princess. Whatever you are interested in, whatever type of stories which you find the most interesting and you find the most joy out of getting immersed in, you should read books based on those topics. Another thing that you can consider when you're thinking about what you're interested in is what type of writing style you're interested in. Some people are very much into descriptive language, descriptive writing, whereas some people prefer imagery, both metaphorically, as in the writing technique, or imagery in the sense of they enjoy comics or manga, webtoons, where you have images alongside text. So really think about what kind of genres, what kind of topics are you interested in reading about, and then also the format of the writing. How do you what kind of books do you like to read? What writing style really appeals to you? Because I know for me personally, you know how a lot of classic literature is written in this very vintage English, very old-timey English. I personally don't like reading that writing style, so it can get very difficult for me to get stuck in a classic literature book. I prefer more modern writing, which is why I read a lot of postmodern young adult books, because I find the writing style easier to read. And so it might be something that you want to think about, what kind of writing style that you're interested in, because it can make a huge effect on how much you enjoy your reading experience. Back to the genres and the topics, really think about, just maybe think back to your hobbies. It doesn't have to be a completely different thing from what you usually do. If you enjoy baking, you can just get a baking book, and read the recipes in there. If you enjoy maybe sewing, you can get a sewing book and such. Again, if you're interested in, think about maybe the TV shows you watch. If you enjoy mystery and crime TV shows, you might like mystery and crime books. And so those are two things that you should really think about. The genre and the writing style. What are you actually interested in? Because there's no point in forcing yourself to read a book that you know you're not really interested in the topic. Best to find something that you love and then choose a book that aligns with that. The second tip I have for you guys is to start viewing reading as a means to an end. This can really kill the enjoyment out of reading. For example, I remember I really lost my love for reading during year 10, year 11, where English literature, I was forced to read certain books and to have to study it. And instead of reading being something that I did for fun and when I was feeling like it, and when I really wanted to read, it instead turned into, okay, I'm reading this book so I can pass my exam. That's viewing reading as a means to an end. Other example is maybe you want to become smarter, and whilst reading a book to become smarter is, or more worldly or more intelligent, is a very admirable goal, it shouldn't be the sole reason why you're reading. Because if you're reading just for another goal, it will start to feel tiresome after a while, more like a chore than it will be just reading for the sake of it. If you really want to fall in love with reading and find your passion for it, you really want to view reading as a peaceful, enjoyable pastime instead of just something that you do in order to achieve something else. Because the minute you start to view reading as something that needs to be done in order to achieve like a greater end, and start seeing it as a means to an end, it's going to feel like a chore. It's going to feel like something you have to do in order to achieve something else. Better for you to just read for the sake of reading, for the sake of just it being a hobby, for the sake of your own enjoyment, instead of trying to achieve something like really amazing with it. Not to say that you can't set goals of reading or like set New Year's resolutions based on reading, but it's just something to keep in mind, that you don't want to really put pressure on yourself to like read specific amounts, like read a certain genre, or like read for the sake of like achieving something greater. You should focus on reading for the sake of reading, enjoying peace, love, and that's how you're really going to like fall in love, to find a passion in reading. Third tip I have for you guys is to really like try out new things, like look beyond what is popular at the time. For example, I remember when I was getting back into reading, what I would do is that I would go to like charity shops or like secondhand bookshops, and I would literally go in there, pick up a random book, read the blurb. If it sounded interested, I would buy it. And that's why I ended up reading a bunch of different books that I never thought I would be interested in, or like I never thought like I would end up reading. But I took that chance with the book. I decided to be spontaneous, and I ended up really enjoying that like genre or author, and reading more of that of those kinds of books. Same with, even though you may have an interest in a certain topic, as I say, it may be the reason why you've sort of hit a rut when it comes to reading is because maybe you're just a bit bored of what you've been reading, or maybe you're seeing the same tropes. Because let's face it, a lot of genres sometimes will have the same tropes, especially in my opinion romance has a lot of tropes that repeat and repeat over and over again. It might be worth like just trying a completely new genre, a completely new like type of story, in order to sort of reset. I often do this when it comes to reading. I'll read a book in a certain genre, and then I'll switch completely. Like I'll go from like fiction to like non-fiction, because it just gives your mind a break. You're reading a different type of text, and it sort of like gives you something to be excited about, if that makes sense. It's just to add that spontaneity to the reading, so that your mind doesn't become like too exhausted or too bored with what you're currently reading at the moment. And therefore you can really like dig into like different stories from wide spectrum of genres, authors, topics. And I think that will really feel like your passion for reading and your passion for exploring different literature and books. Advice number 4 would be to read at your energy level. Now, what does this mean? What I mean by like reading at your energy level is to read is to sort of read where you're at. So for example, if you're like really tired, maybe you don't have the energy to like be staring at like a body of text and trying to read through it, and that's completely reasonable. A lot of us have 9-to-5 jobs. We may be tired at the end of the day, and so we can't sit down and really focus on the book in front of us. So like a good option, like if you're having like low energy levels, is audiobooks. A lot of people really like audiobooks, although personally for me, I can't use them because I tend to daydream whilst I'm listening to them. But audiobooks are a really great option if that's what you're into. Another good option, this is the one I personally opt for when my energy levels are low, is to read like books that include images. This can be comics, webtoons, mangas, manhwas. These stories have great plots. They're just as like immersive as let's say a novel, but because, or at least as I find, because of the images and because a lot of it, the story is driven by dialogue, it's much easier to read, and so I can still read even when I'm tired. Because I feel like if you try and force yourself and this kind of comes back to the part of like seeing reading as a means to an end. If you try and force yourself to read like heavy descriptive literature, novels, when you're just not feeling like it, or if you're really tired, it's gonna feel like a chore again. It's gonna feel like, oh, I have to do this, like I have to read this book or else blah blah blah. It's better to read at your energy level, and you shouldn't feel bad about like wanting to like maybe take a break from like a really heavy book, or else if you force yourself, you're going to like struggle to fall in love with that book, or struggle to like keep up with reading because it feels like a chore. Best to read at your energy level. Take breaks from certain books if you feel like it's getting a bit too heavy for you, or it's taking too much of your energy, and then once you take that break whilst reading a more low energy book, or like listening to it in the case of audiobooks, you can go back to that book and you'll find, I think, that you'll enjoy it a lot more. And then my last tip for you guys and how to find your hidden love for reading is to read when you're bored. And I think that a lot of people, when they're trying to get back into reading, will like try and like force themselves to read at certain times of the day for a certain amount of time. And whilst that's all well and good, I think I find that you start to build a sort of resentment to reading, because again, it links back to what I was saying before. It starts to feel like another chore to your day. It's something you have to do. And I feel like when you are forced to do something, you naturally grow to like, if not resent, or at least like mildly dislike what you're doing. I personally think it's best that instead of trying to force yourself at certain times of the day to read when you're free, to read when you're bored, because especially if you're like a beginner, or not a beginner but like new to like, or you're trying to build up your passion for reading, it's best to do it when you're bored, because slowly and gradually, as you fall in love with books, as you explore different genres, as you really find your love for reading, you'll start to find that you read more just because you love the thing. Like, you will over time you will get better results by reading when you're bored, because you really like grow a genuine love, because reading feels more like a hobby, like an option. Whereas if you try and force yourself to read at like certain intervals, it might work if you're quite disciplined, but for a lot of people, including myself, it will feel like another job to your day, and no one likes doing a job in their day. So you'll like slowly in the long run maybe lose that habit, or if you don't lose that habit, you may be reading more but you're not going to truly love it. And so that would be my final tidbit for you guys, to really like read when you're bored, view reading as a hobby, not as something that has to be done. Okay, and those are my 5 tips to help you guys find your hidden love for reading. I truly think everyone is capable of loving reading. I feel like there's something out there for everybody, whether it's like novels, fantasy, non-fiction, biographies, autobiographies, manhwas, manga, webtoons, whatever your fancy. I truly do believe there's gonna be a book out there for you. It's just such a vast world, and I'm so excited for you guys to explore it. Hopefully my video will help you get in the swings of things, hopefully take off the pressure that perhaps any New Year's resolutions to read more has put on yourselves. I really want you guys to take from this video that reading doesn't have to be like something like that. It doesn't have to be a chore. It doesn't have to be a means to an end. It can just be something you love, and it can stick to that. You don't have to be reading like 30 minutes per day or like an hour a day for you to love reading. The love of reading comes from genuinely enjoying what you're doing, and if you're forcing yourself to do that, that's not really love, if that makes sense. If you love reading, you'll gradually just read more. That's what happens when you love something. And so I really hope this video, these tips have helped you like reimagine the potential, like your plan to like read more this year. And I really hope that you've learned something new from this.